you know, when it's the weekend, it's got to be Michael Snyder. So we go out to the left coast of the United States and talk to him. Hello, Michael.
Hi, Alex, and hello, listeners. And we are ready to roll with a bunch of new films. And it's warm and summery in Los Angeles right now. I hate to say it if you're chilling out wherever you happen to be. But the strange thing is, this weekend also sees perhaps the first of the summer-style blockbusters to hit the movie theaters, that being Kong Skull Island. Shall we get to the reviews, Mr. Bennett?
Please, let's do.
The reboot of the King Kong franchise, which is meant to be part of an all-new Legendary Pictures movie series, is set in the early 1970s, right after the end of the Vietnam War, and largely on the island where the giant ape and other gargantuan creatures have survived the ages. This is a good cast who have been brought together to make this film happen. Tom Hiddleston, Samuel L. Jackson, Brie Larson, John C. Reilly, and John Goodman are among the cast members, the most prominent ones. And it's directed, oddly enough, by Jordan Vogt-Roberts, a guy I know best from his work directing episodes of one of my favorite contemporary sitcoms, You're the Worst. I don't know how he went from You're the Worst to Kong Skull Island, but he does a fine, fine job. And in fact, compared to Peter Jackson's ponderous and bloated remake of the unassailable 1933 classic King Kong, this is a lean and mean action and laughs machine. It's got a lively B-movie vibe despite the big budget blockbuster look, and it also has sly echoes of the early 70s setting of Francis Coppola's Vietnam War epic Apocalypse Now. Right, there are echoes of Apocalypse Now here. I'm just guessing here, but Kong Skull Island could actually be as much as 80% or more animated, but it looks fantastic and far and away better than Jackson's Kong, which was made by his effects firm, Weta, with the state-of-the-art effects at the time, almost 2 decades ago. This is also a better cast than the one in Jackson's film, which actually flirted with retro 30s camp. Instead of Jack Black, Adrian Brody, and Naomi Watts, we get Goodman, Hiddleston, and rather than a damsel in distress, which is what Watts played and Fay Wray played in the original film, you get Brie Larson as a daring photojournalist straight from the Vietnam War. So the mission to investigate the cloud-shrouded Skull Island is a government-sponsored scientific expedition by an organization that has looked at the strange and inexplicable natural phenomena since World War II. The mission includes Larson's photographer, a British adventurer, tracker, and survival expert played by Hiddleston, and a unit of army troops fresh from Nam and led by an officer embittered by the outcome of the war. He's played to a fare thee well by Jackson. And of course, the island has seemingly hostile natives, but also a castaway, allowing John C. Reilly to provide info dumps about the place, as well as hilarious comic relief. Kong himself is an immense and tragic beast, beautifully rendered, allowing easy suspension of belief, and his battles on the island with its other monstrous denizens are utterly fantastic. Plus, there is a broader mythos being created here that will play out in subsequent films and also connects to a pre-existing property that I won't mention here so as not to spoil anything, and the components of that property. I had a blast at Kong, and I look forward to the next installment wherever it happens to go. Okay, My Scientology Movie is an English documentary by the filmmaker and broadcaster Louis Theroux. I think he works for the BBC. Anyway, herein he investigates what goes on behind the scenes of the infamous Church of Scientology. It actually sets itself largely in Los Angeles, as Theroux haunts all of the various locations where Scientology has its headquarters, and also brings in disgruntled former members of the church, archival footage which will make your jaw drop, and a very funny set of sequences where, since he can't get access to the current leader of the Church of Scientology, nor can he actually bring in some of the people that are still involved because no one will talk to him, he decides to recreate certain incidents that have happened according to those who recount these incidents. So he's auditioning people to play the guy in charge. He's auditioning people to play Tom Cruise. He's shooting these things, and all the while, Church of Scientology members who have gotten a hint that he's doing this begin harassing him. It's funny, It's sort of informative. We've kind of plowed over this ground before with other documentaries in the past couple of years, but Thoreau's is very personal, and you see the direct attacks on him as he attempts to sort of reveal what's behind this strange quasi-church that was founded by the sci-fi writer L. Ron Hubbard, possibly as a money-making operation, possibly something legit, but filled with like kind of crazy science fiction concepts, as we have now learned. I know that, maybe we've been here before, but I thought that my Scientology movie, which makes no bones about it being Thoreau's personal view, is pretty fascinating and pretty cool. And again, it's funny in places and seriously unsettling in others. Okay, there may be subtitles involved, but I really recommend Raw, which is a strange movie about a 16-year-old first-year student at a veterinary school, a prodigy, who starts getting way too in touch with her animal instincts. It's a very cool Franco-Belgian feature. Raw is also a dark and twisted mix of horror, coming-of-age story, and social commentary that gets very grisly, so beware. I mean, there are Carrie moments in this thing. But the young actress playing Justine, the student, is on point. Terrific performance by Garance Marillier as Justine, and also her older sister Alexia, who is also at the school, is also well realized by Ella Rumpf, who is a slightly older actress, of course. Anyway, their tensions, sisterly though they may be, churn up a lot of the drama, as does the interplay between Justine and her buff gay roommate Adrian. There are some extreme hazing rituals that the new students have to endure, and that might be what pushes Justine to give up her family's traditional vegetarian diet. I mean, really give it up. On the other hand, who doesn't love a nice raw burger or ribs now and again? Anyway, Raw, very, very cool. Written and directed by Julia Ducournau. I hadn't seen anything by this filmmaker before, but this is quite an impressive piece of work. Again, subtitled, but I don't care. It was good. Speaking of subtitles, Personal Shopper may star Kristen Stewart as the titular personal shopper, a young woman working in Paris for a very obnoxious and flighty model. But there is a big French cast here, international cast, and it's the work of the French writer-director Olivier Assayas. I love his stuff. And this drama revolves around a ghost story that takes place basically in the fashion underworld of Paris. It's kind of provocative and creepy. Not my favorite by Assayas, but cool for sure. And although I'm not a gigantic fan of Stewart, she was a good call in the role here. Chilly and off-kilter and androgynous enough to add to the sense of discomfort as a young woman whose twin brother died. They were both mediums or self-styled mediums, so she's trying to contact the twin brother from beyond in a house where he may have died and where he basically is haunting the place. And so there are kind of really creepy paranormal sequences. There's stuff about her job in Paris, going from couturier to couturier, picking up clothes and accessories for this vain and obnoxious model. And of course, she has interplay with some of her associates in the beautiful city of light. I thought it was kind of cool. Again, all right, I know people don't like subtitles, but Personal Shopper was pretty interesting. And if there's a movie that's going to enable you as the American viewer to get into an Olivier Assayas film, this might be it because of the presence of Stewart. So I give Personal Shopper a tentative thumbs up. Thank you, Roger Ebert. And, again, I'm not a big fan of Kristen Stewart, but I liked this. The sense of an ending is one of those deep and deeply affecting character studies that the Brits do so well. Of course, it helps on these things when your reflective and questing older man character, who is seeking answers about past transgressions, is played by an actor as able and prodigious as the great Jim Broadbent. Here he's kind of a jerk who's set in his ways, estranged from his wife and pregnant daughter, and disturbed about a relationship from back in his university days that still haunts him. In fact, this guy, Tony, is a relic, hanging out onto that past, and it's also made clear by the fact that he runs a vintage camera shop. So when this past begins to catch up to him, it's only what he deserves. The rest of the cast is as solid as you would hope, with Michelle Dockery of Downton Abbey playing Tony's daughter, and Charlotte Rampling playing the aged version of Tony's first love in the contemporary scenes, and Emily Mortimer, you may remember her from The Newsroom, playing the girl's inappropriately flirty mother in flashback. All are standouts. The sense of an ending can be a little dry until it becomes moving and sad. If you're into melancholy, and I am on occasion, this movie is for you. Okay, Brimstone is a Western thriller about a young woman and her family endangered by the new reverend in town who has shown up in this small town to lead the local congregation. It stars Dakota Fanning, who's been kind of absent without leave. She's been, kind of not as present as her sister Elle. Kit Harington and Carice Van Houten of Game of Thrones, where he's Jon Snow and she's Melisandre the Red Witch, and Guy Pearce. It's a Western Gothic, or a goth Western, and a disappointment, despite some serious Sturm und Drang, storm and stress. There are supernatural elements as a fire and brimstone preacher, played by Pearce, shows up to head the local congregation, but seems to have a hard-on for the sweet, young, mute wife of an older rancher. The beleaguered woman is the most challenging role for Fanning in a while. Like I said, her sister Elle is getting all the high-profile work lately. And this is from a Dutch writer-director, Martin Koolhoven, and shot in Eastern Europe. That's right, a Western from a tulip sniffer. Still, with a title like Brimstone, you expect it to have you on the edge of your seat, but ultimately it just lopes along with occasional bursts of frenzy, mostly provided by Pearce's loony preacher. By the way, Fanning is solid. Though she plays a mute character on screen, there are flashbacks where she speaks and she's the narrator. But Harrington doesn't quite convince as an outlaw gunslinger in the Old West. I kept expecting him to whip out a broadsword. Again, Brimstone, disappointing for me. Okay, let's wrap this baby up with this beautiful, fantastic, a British attempt at an Amelie-style portrait of a quirky, adorable, manic, pixie-ish young woman who almost magically interacts with the people she encounters. But it doesn't work quite as well in English as it does when the setting is Montmartre, the dialogue is in French, and the young woman is the height of quirky adorableness, Audrey Tautou. True, Jessica Brown Finlay as Bella, the Amelie of this beautiful, fantastic, is beautiful and somewhat fantastic. She was the one Grantham sister in Downton Abbey that didn't make me queasy some of the time, so it's a Downton Abbey reunion weekend here. But this fableish whimsy centering around Bella's oddball friendship with a bitter, wealthy old man who is her neighbor falters. Not quite as magical as it would like to be, although Brown Finlay certainly keeps up with her esteemed co-star, the UK character actor Tom Wilkinson, who plays the senior citizen, a widower with a green thumb. Now, there's a serio-comic invention here, but, you get Andrew Scott, Moriarty on Sherlock, and a Chancellor to liven things up, but I couldn't help but feel like they were going for sparkle, and they ended up with fizzle. Anyway, that's it for the week in movies. What do you got in terms of films or movie or TV or whatever?
Nothing. It's boring. It's boring out there.
Nothing on there? Nothing on the old tube?
No, still watching Legion. I'm slogging through it.
A little too weird.
No, it's not weird. I'm trying to decide whether I like it or not.
Does this have to do with liking the lead character, who is, after all, a schizophrenic mutant?
No, it has nothing to do with that. It has to do with the way it's done. The way it's presented, which is very artful, but I'm trying to figure out if it isn't pretentious,
Oh, we can't have that. We can't have that.
We can't have that. But that's it. That's about it. I can't think of anything else.
Still watching The Expanse myself and loving it, but let's move on to our little bit of information where you can find me, which is on Twitter at Culture Blaster and on Facebook at Michael Snyder's Culture Blast page. Hopefully we'll be back next week. A couple of good films this week, but who knows what the future has in store. Yeah, well, I don't hold out for much, because we find we haven't been going to the movies lately because there's nothing to see. Anyway, thank you so much, Michael Snyder. He will be back with us again next week, but he'll be here all weekend long with his reviews. In the meantime, there's more GABNet coming right up.